Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here, Philip and Jenna, to talk to you about the Learning to Love curriculum. And today we are talking to you about judgment. So this can be a little bit of a tricky one. Judgment, it can be useful if we are going to cross the street and we need to make a judgment as to whether that's safe to cross or not. Judgment is very valuable. Judgment also plays out in many different ways in our lives. So we're going to dive into it for a few minutes here and have that discussion. So welcome, Philip.
Hey, thanks, Jenna. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah. So judgment. I know judgment is a lovely little thing that allows me to put things in boxes. So if I judge something, label it, put it into a category, I can then feel more able to enter into the situation. So judgment also can play out in keeping me safe from interacting in a certain way. So if I'm going to come into a situation and I have any judgments that come with me, it's a shield that keeps me safe. And I also know that it's a lovely projection of myself. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we can talk about the mechanism of how it works, because the important thing is that it's a projection of shame. So when I judge, I am projecting shame that I feel. And how does it keep me safe? Well, shame is an identification, and it's all unconscious. We won't ever be doing this until we've trained ourselves to do this. We won't be doing this consciously. It's a projection of shame, shame being an identification with certain aspects of who we are, that when we elicit, or when we are in those parts of ourselves, there's a tendency for people to pull away from us, or at least we're afraid that they'll do that they'll ostracize us, disconnect from us, socially reject us. So those parts of the entirety of who we are that we show to other people, and there's a risk of them withdrawing, those belong to an area that we call our blue, and we'll introduce people at some point to what the blue and the yellow really refer to. Whenever somebody sees part of my blue exposed, I'm afraid that they're going to reject me or disassociate from me, and I'm terrified that that's going to happen. So what happens within that situation is I feel threatened, so I have to protect myself. And the two forms of high protection are to either fight my way out of it or to flee from it. And my judgment is doing the work of identifying what these blue things are, what it is that's safe, what it is that creates connectivity, and what are the things that create disconnectivity. And my reaction to through judging the other person is trying to create a situation where the danger goes away. Does that make any sense?
It does. So when we are judging another, we are actually projecting our own discomfort with ourselves and those pieces of ourselves that we feel shame over or feel disconnected from. It's way easier to project that out in, did you see what this person did? When we can get to the place of looking at it like a mirror of, I'm having a reaction to what this person did, and turning the mirror around back to ourselves to say, maybe this is something for me to look at, and paying attention to that. And I love the piece of understanding. When we can understand what's behind the judgment, then it changes the judgment. It moves it into a different area. So now I'm curious about my judgments instead of allowing the judgments to control how I engage in the world, who I engage with, what I do, how I behave. So it really does open up a lot of space to engage differently.
What I want to introduce here is the idea that there is an option for human beings to be able to love without any conditions. So right now, what we're saying is that when a person's arrogant, that feels unsafe. So as long as they're in that part of themselves that's arrogant, it's unsafe for me. I judge their arrogance. I judge the humility, but the humility I don't find as threatening. My ability to reach this place where I'm no longer triggered by my environment is when I can unconditionally love and accept their arrogance exactly the same way that I embrace their humility, so that I can embrace their cruelty in the same way that I embrace their kindness, knowing that they're not going to be cruel unless there's something pushing them to do that. There's some defensive reason that takes them to bring out their cruelty. There's some reason that brings out their kindness. We don't usually think about it in these terms, but none of these things come out of us unless they're actually serving some kind of a self-preservation need. And so we step back and look at this judgment from a context that sees it within our need to try and discern what's threatening, what's not threatening, and within a way of being that you and I at least are trying to get to, where we no longer care how the person's being, because it's more reflection of our own discomfort with those pieces. And since we're trying to love ourselves unconditionally, we'd really like to embrace our own arrogance, our own cruelty, our own perversion, our own all of these pieces that are hard for us. And when we can do that, all of our judgments go away. Judgment no longer serves anything in a social context.
And there's no emotional drive behind it. So there's nothing that's emotionally being triggered, as you use the word trigger, for us in that. So their behavior has less effect on us because we have embraced all of us, all of ourselves. Once we get to this place of embracing ourselves and all of what that is, then others around us have a lot less emotional impact on our every moment, on our day-to-day activities.
Yeah, and it's not an invitation to be cruel or to be arrogant, but rather to embrace the fact that those are natural parts that exist in me. I don't know, there's a billion other examples of different aspects of ourselves that we reject. So we don't need to act out on our perversion, or I'm not finding examples right now, but just to accept the fact that we have the propensity for those, and that shifts our need for security.
Mm-hmm. And just to end this on a piece of the power that mindfulness can bring into this, non-judgmental is a huge piece of mindfulness. And so just adding a tool for individuals of slowing themselves down enough, take a couple of deep breaths, and really try to ground ourselves and center ourselves when we're feeling like we're in a moment that we are emotionally triggered and our judgments are high. So that we can come back to ourselves and be okay in that moment, so that we then interact from a completely different place, really a more grounded, centered place. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, Philip. Good conversation. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.